Hello everyone, my name is Kenny Cormandy from the YouTube channel My Airgun Reviews, and today we are looking at a pellet rifle from Remington. This is the Remington Express XP .177 caliber. The gun sells most places for $99.99. I guess you can't expect a whole lot. The gun comes with a built-in sound suppressor. It has a 19-inch barrel, blued receiver, dark hardwood stock, checkering on the forearm and the pistol grip, two-stage trigger, automatic safety. You press in actually very hard on this run to release the safety. It does not have a raised cheek piece. It's a little slender back there, so it's the same for both left and right-handed shooters, and a rubber butt pad. So let's take a close-up of this rifle. Here's your built-in sound suppressor, your blued barrel. There's a place to install a rear sight, but it comes with no front sight. I guess if you wanted, you could jerry rig something. Comes with a dovetail scope mount. It has horizontal grooves for apparently mounting like a Weaver to dovetail adapter similar to Umarex. This is not the original scope. This is a Hammer's 3 to 9 by 40 AO scope, because the original scope is just inadequate for this review. Your two-stage trigger is stiff but very short. The checkering on the grip, pretty nice tone to the wood, and the rubber butt pad with the Remington embossed on the back. Okay, here I've removed the scope so you can see the 4 grooves across the dovetail mount, and this is the original scope ring that comes with the scope, and there is no type of scope stop pin on it. Absolutely nothing to keep that scope from walking backwards. When I first mounted this Hammer's scope, see if I can get it in the light enough where you can see this. You can see what it did to the back of the scope mount as the scope walked backwards. And this scope has 4 mounting screws to clamp it on tight. I was able to wedge this scope stop pin down into this last groove, and still walked back about a 1/16 of an inch, but then it kind of settled in from there. So the only real way to keep the scope in place on this gun is to get a set of scope rings that have a scope stop pin, and then drill indent for that scope stop pin to go into, which may very well void your warranty. And here you can see the printing on the rifle, Remington Arms Company LLC. And there's a close-up of the safety. Yeah, I was really excited when I got this gun. I thought, wow, somebody's putting out a pretty good product for $100. And you know, sound suppressor, 3 to 9 by 32 scope, two-stage trigger, automatic safety, nice wood stock, nice checkering, and boy was I disappointed. The first major problem I had was with the breech seal. It would not seal. It was so recessed that, you know, there was just absolutely nothing to stop the air from escaping through the breech. You can see I put a piece of tissue over the breech and fired, and you can see that vertical line there just in front of my thumb. That's a blast of dirty oil that came up through the breech. It just blew this tissue right off. I took the breech seal out, I put a new one in, didn't even come close. I took some Teflon tape, trimmed a piece, and twisted it into a string and put that into the channel for the breech seal. Put the O-ring in, it still leaked. I put a second ribbon of Teflon tape in there and it came closer, and finally I used a thicker O-ring out of a auto air conditioning kit, and I finally got the thing to quit leaking. You know, that's a lot of work just to stop a breech leak, and the average person is not going to have the knowledge to do something like that. Anyway, let's move on. The gun is 8.8 pounds without a scope. You add a scope and rings, and the gun is over 10 pounds. That makes it a very heavy gun. They say 47.5 inches long. I measured the gun at 46 inches long. 19-inch barrel. With the high energy claims of this gun, here, let's take a look at that. I'll show you a picture of the box. So, I was expecting this gun to cock like a Super Magnum Springer, and was I surprised when I only got 29 pounds of cocking effort. As far as performance goes, they claim 1,300 feet per second with alloy pellets, and it actually did reasonable with the RWS Hypermax 5.2 grain alloy pellets. We did get a high of 1,265 feet per second and an average of 1,221 feet per second with a 19.23 foot per second extreme spread. That most powerful shot gave us 17.62 foot-pounds muzzle energy. That is 25% less than the claimed 23 foot-pounds muzzle energy. No other pellet came close to the 17 foot-pounds muzzle energy, none of the lead pellets. They claim 1,150 feet per second with lead pellets, shooting the RWS Hobby 7 grains. We had a high of 1035, a low of 1,029 feet per second, an average of 1,032 feet per second, only a 6.25 foot per second extreme spread, and a 2.23 foot per second standard deviation. That was pretty consistent. That averaged 16.56 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. There were other pellets that shot consistently. The most consistent lead pellet, other than the RWS Hobby, was the H&M Barracuda Match 10.65 grain. That had a high of 835.9 feet per second, averaging 832.2 feet per second. 6.36 foot per second extreme spread, standard deviation only 2.64. The H&M Barracuda Hunters had a 13 foot per second extreme spread. The H&M Crow Magnum only a 7.45 foot per second extreme spread. And the RWS Meisterkugeln had a 10.35 foot per second extreme spread. So it was fairly consistent in pellet speeds. And all of these pellets that I just named off, other than the Hobbies and Hypermax, I used on my initial accuracy test. They shot a pretty tight pattern at 12 yards. So I'm going to put up the power numbers here and you can take a look at them. Okay, like I said, it shot a lot of pellets fairly consistently over the Crony, and at 12 yards we had some pretty good tight patterns, but at 20 yards it was completely different. Only one pellet actually gave us a good group. It was a very good group, but Now let's take a look at the outdoor accuracy test at 20 yards.
My fault.
The RWS Meisterkugelns were very accurate at 12 yards, but obviously not at 20 yards. It's about it's a couple inch pattern. And the H&N Crow Magnum was not quite as bad, but that's still about an inch and a half. The H&N Barracuda Hunter, you can see it's about an inch pattern. And the H&N Barracuda Match, this shot was my fault, but all the rest of them here, you can see the dime right there. That pattern's smaller than the dime at 20 yards. So with the right pellet, I guess the gun can be accurate. So as you can see, it was very, very accurate with the H&N Barracuda Match 10.65 grain. That was at 20 yards, smaller than a dime. But the Meisterkugelns, which were very accurate at 12 yards, that was a very large pattern, over 2 inch. The Crow Magnum, inch and a half. The H&M Barracuda Hunters, over a 1 inch pattern. It only shot one pellet out of all of them accurately at 20 yards. And I had to use the hammer scope because the original scope that came with it, I could not get a clear reticle and sight objective at 12 yards at all. It just was not going to work. And at 20 yards, that scope, the only time I could get a clear sight objective was just under 5 power. Most 4x32s work better than that scope at 20 yards. So the scope was really useless, so I used the hammer scope for the accuracy test. Plus, I did not have any rings that were going to hold that scope in place unless I took the mount off the hammers. And the gun had other issues. Aside from the breech seal channel being too deep, for the first 140 shots, between 8 and 12 times I cocked the gun, I would pull the barrel down, you'd hear it latch, you would feel like it latched, and you go to release and the barrel tries to whip back, close. So you never really could relax your grip on that barrel. And you'd have to pull it down again a second time to make sure it was latched. And after about 140, 145 shots, it seemed to quit doing it. and after about 205 shots, it still had not done it again, so I thought that had worked itself out. And then I went to do the outdoor accuracy test, and it did it several more times again. So that's very disturbing, because you think the quirk is over and then it comes back. So this gun is not very well machined or designed. And the other issue is the safety. It's a very stiff safety, and so many times, I pressed it in, went to fire, and the trigger had some play in it like this, and that meant the safety was still on. And you would have to push in again harder to get that safety to release. Because when the safety is off, you go to pull that trigger and it's tight. It's right up against that second stage. So it's actually a pretty good trigger for target shooting, because, the second stage is right there, and when you pull the trigger, the gun fires. That I like. That's probably one of the only things I like about this gun, other than the sound suppressor, and the ease of cocking. If you're looking for a gun easier to cock, this gun is easy to cock, but it's not easy to carry around at over 10 pounds. The grip was all right. It's nothing fancy, but it was reasonably comfortable at shooting from the bench. The rubber butt pad is a little bit hard. It doesn't really do anything to reduce the feel of the recoil. And overall, I'm very disappointed because it's got so many quirks. The breech seal is probably the worst problem, and it's very dangerous, the fact that you can think the gun is cocked and let go of the barrel, and the barrel's just going to slam back shut and ruin the gun. And then the safety is very frustrating. You get all sighted in, ready to pull the trigger, and the safety's still on. You got to go back up and release it. Also had to continually tighten the stock mounting screws on it to keep it zeroed in. If you can only afford $100 for a pellet rifle, if you are capable of doing a few chores to get this breech seal to seal, that's fine. And if you can invest in scope stops with a scope stop pin and want to drill the hole, which will probably void the warranty, you can probably make it work. But there are better options out there. A Ruger Blackhawk Elite, which is about the same price, $99.97 or something like that, from Walmart. Yeah, you might have to replace the breech seal, but you don't got to do anything fancy. All you got to do is pull the old seal out, put a new seal in. But that rifle came with a 4x32 scope that really worked. It was not too bad at 20 yards, and it stayed put. The rings were not heavy duty, but it had a scope stop on the back, and you could rely on that, and that would keep the scope locked in. You want to pay 25 bucks more, you can get yourself a Umrex torque. It cocks with, just a few pounds more cocking effort, but you've also got your silencer. It's probably 1 or 2 decibels even quieter than this. Super accurate. It's got a good usable trigger. It's got a very good usable 4x32 scope that's on a Weaver mount. You never have to worry about that walking, and you get a 3-year warranty. There's a lot of Crossmans even that I would rather have than this. A Crossman Vantage or Optimus. With them, yeah, you probably have to replace the trigger adjusting screw, and you probably have to put a different scope on it, because it's just hard to find a Crossman scope that works. But I would have a lot more peace of mind with one of those than I would with this one. It's got so many issues. So I cannot recommend anyone to buy this rifle. It's just got too many quirks, and it's dangerous with the fact that you go to cock it and you think it's cocked, and you let go of the barrel, and the barrel's going to slam back in your face. So I do not recommend this pellet rifle. That is my review of the Remington Express XP. We're not even going to complain about the lack of power. It's decent power for Magnum Springer. It's average power. It's good cocking effort. but it's not what it's claimed to be. That's my review. Thank you for watching.